Do you ever feel like your space looks or feels a little off and you can't really put your finger on why? This has happened to me quite a bit, and over the years of decorating and designing all the spaces I've ever lived in, both good and bad, I've come up with a list of 7 things to look out for in your space and how you might be able to fix these issues. The first thing that might be making your space feel off is that you might actually have too much art up on your walls, or you haven't placed your art in the optimal spots. When we have a big empty wall in our space, it's really common to think to fill it with a big collection of a bunch of different pieces, like a gallery wall. If you have a gallery wall in your space and you love it, it brings you joy, please don't get rid of it. But if your gallery wall is kind of irking you, or you feel a little overstimulated by all the different imagery and frames, then there are other options for that space. So the 2 most common places for a gallery wall are on a big wall in your main area, such as above a sofa or a console table, and above your staircase. For that main area, I would consider choosing one large piece of art. Likely you have quite a few pieces of furniture in that general area, maybe your sofa, coffee table, TV. Maybe the space is also shared with an area where you socialize or sit and eat, so there's all that furniture as well. Having one large piece on the wall as a focal point of that room can really calm down the energy because it gives your eye somewhere to land as opposed to bouncing around to a bunch of different pieces on the wall. I also think that both you and the guests in your home are so much more likely to actually appreciate one large, significant piece than you would be to really take in any one piece in a more crowded gallery wall. As for the stairs, there's lots of options, and the best one for you really just depends on the layout of your stairs and your personal style. But if you have one long staircase with a gallery wall above it, sort of going diagonally up the stairs, consider replacing this with a few small, really cohesive pieces of art. Pieces that are very much in the same family. So not cousins, not identical twins, but sisters. Maybe they're all the same artist. Maybe they all have the same colors. Maybe they're all black and white photography. They all should be the same size and they all should be in the same exact frame. This allows you to fill the space more than you would be able to with just one single piece. It allows you to kind of mirror the direction of the stairs if you wanted to, all with just one single idea. A gallery wall is usually a collage of a bunch of different ideas, but doing something like this will really bring the art pieces together as one piece, reducing the visual clutter. If you have the kind of staircase that has a landing between 2 different sets of steps, this landing is the perfect place for an art piece or 2 stacked on top of each other. In this scenario, you would leave the other walls directly above the stairs empty. This brings me to my last point about art on the walls, and then I promise we'll move on to the next point. But if your space feels off, see if you've placed art on any walls that are sort of in between zones or don't fit into any one single room. Something that helps our homes feel comfortable is having very clearly defined zones that serve specific purposes. This is really simple in closed concept homes because the walls do that work for us. They separate the different spaces, but it gets more complex in more open concept homes. If we look at this floor plan, for example, it might be tempting to put a piece of art here, centered on this long wall in this nice empty space, but it's actually best to leave that spot as negative space and let it act as breathing room between the dining room zone and the living room zone. A better spot would be here in line with the dining table and likely in line with a pendant light above that table. The table will ground the piece of art, and the piece of art will help to define the dining space even further. Okay, there's so much more I could say on that point, but let's move on to number 2 on my list, which is products. This might sound crazy, but any product that you have out in the open in your home, whether it be dish soap, toothpaste, or olive oil, is acting as decor. So if you feel like you have a nice home free of clutter and yet your space still feels off and like visually overstimulating, it might be as simple as your bottles are ugly. As someone who went to school for graphic design and has always been kind of obsessed with packaging, I will admit I'm one to splurge on a product just for the good packaging. However, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. There are other options. First, I'd recommend taking stock of what products you actually want to have out in the open in your home. And what of those products would you actually be happier to have hidden away in a drawer or cabinet? And then second, for those products that you do want to have out for the sake of convenience, put them in a nice looking refillable bottle that goes with the rest of your space visually. Amber glass bottles are a really common solution for this, but something like this is also really nice. When you're choosing your container, make sure to think about whether or not you want to be able to see the product that's inside the bottle. For example, if you're picking something to put your Dawn dish soap in, that's like very bright blue. So unless that happens to go with your aesthetic, maybe choose something that's more opaque. Also, just make sure that it's intuitive what's inside the bottle, especially for shared items like in the kitchen. And if it's not, all you have to do is label it. Another thing to consider is tissue boxes. I bought this really cute tissue box cover from a boutique in a Colorado mountain town. I saw it and I just for some reason needed to have it. Some people will go as far as to cover their toothbrush with something like this. And while I don't hate that idea, you don't want to go too far with this. You still want your home to look and feel lived in. So it's not about hiding away all the things that you use every day. It's more about being really intentional about the look and feel of every single product that you bring into your home. Number 3 is exposed corners. This idea is really important in feng shui and probably other ideologies as well. And I find it really interesting because it's largely subconscious. If your space is feeling off, it could be because there are too many sharp corners pointing at you, creating too much harsh negative energy. Exposed beams, especially if they're really low and encroaching on a space, can really affect the energy in the room, kind of cutting that energy into segments. This is especially detrimental in the bedroom where you really want to feel a sense of calm, and you certainly don't want energy segmenting your bed while you're sleeping. Also, in your bedroom, you naturally look up to the ceiling and you see the sharp edges of the beams kind of coming down on you. So if you feel like this is affecting your space and you have the option, you can paint these beams the same color as your ceiling to really soften those edges and make this less of a dramatic effect. Square pillars and protruding wall corners like this can also create that negative energy in a space. The best way to fix that issue is by filling the space so that that room turns into a more regular rectangle shape. You could do built-in storage like this, or even a low built-in bookshelf would help. And if you can't do that, softening that edge with a plant would be the next best thing. In terms of furniture that create these exposed corners, a tall bookshelf is the most common culprit that I see online and also tend to run into in my own spaces. It's difficult because creating built-ins in your home is not cheap and it's usually not renter friendly either. So many of us bring in pieces like this for storage and decor. But when it comes to bookshelves and storage units like this, it's best to have something low and horizontal instead. Best case scenario would be for the piece of furniture to go wall to wall, eliminating the corners and edges on the ends. But if that's not possible, at least having it low means that the piece isn't looming over you, and it also makes those corners and edges a lot shorter. The last thing I'll mention with this point is hanging lights. If you have a pendant light that hangs overhead, make sure it doesn't have any sharp angles. This could definitely be making your space feel off because these types of cage lights are really, really common, but they are not doing our spaces any favors. Replace it with something rounded and with a light color. We want it to generally have a light visual weight, not a heavy visual weight. Again, it's really subconscious, but you don't want to feel weight kind of coming down on you. You don't want something heavy above you. Even if you know rationally it's not going to fall on you, you just in the back of your head are going to be more comfortable and at ease. if you don't have something heavy looming over your head or sharp corners pointing towards you. Number 4 on my list also has to do with storage. If your space is feeling off, especially if it's feeling visually cluttered, consider replacing some of your open storage solutions with closed storage. Open shelving was really trendy for a while, and obviously I do think it can be done well, but if you're looking for ways to simplify your space visually and make it feel calmer, closed storage is going to be the way to go. You could go as far as to replace open kitchen shelving with upper cabinets. You could replace a bookcase like this with a sideboard or hutch. You could get baskets to organize your items in 1 or 2 of your shelves and maybe keep the others open. If you do this, I'd recommend having the ones on the bottom have the baskets, because those are going to be more full and weighty visually. So grounding them at the bottom is going to be what looks best. Even a simple curtain can turn open storage into closed storage. And again, it's really not about hiding away all of your things, as it is about giving you a calmer space to help you notice the things in your home you want to notice, as opposed to the things you don't want to notice. Number 5 is about mirrors. If your space feels off, see if you've placed your mirrors in any of these positions. If you have a mirror at the end of a hallway, it's going to give off weird vibes, because you'll be sort of looking at yourself as you walk down the hallway, which is just not really comfortable. Same with your entrance. You don't want to be confronted with a mirror as soon as you enter a home or a space. You don't want a mirror behind your sofa, because A, that will likely reflect whatever you're watching in the TV, and B, you don't want a mirror behind where you're going to be trying to sit calmly and comfortably, because it's just kind of vulnerable to have a mirror behind you. For the same reason, avoid having mirrors facing your bed. So where should you put a mirror in your home? You want to reflect something good, something that you want to kind of double up in your space. So a cozy area in your home, or the best thing I think is reflecting an outside view. So putting it across from a window with a lot of natural light, because then you're going to be able to balance out the space and actually create more light in the space if it's reflecting that natural light outside. My last 2 are a bit more trivial, but I think they're worth mentioning, so I'm just going to kind of power through them. Number 6 is cords. This might seem obvious, but hiding your cords away can really help your space feel more calm and well designed. Where you can, just hide them, whether it be in the wall, along the wall, kind of disguised in the same color as your wall, maybe in a basket or tied up under your desk. Where you can't hide a cord, make it look intentional. I recently got this cord cover from a fiber artist on Etsy, and at first when I put it on, I kind of thought it looked stupid, but honestly, I'm kind of in love with it now. I would not go overboard with this idea. Like, definitely don't do it more than once in the same like view of your house. Number 7 is blankets. This might just be a me problem, but I love soft blankets. Whenever I'm on the couch, I am always under a blanket, and we have a dog and she kind of has her own blankets on the couch. And so I've noticed that my space sometimes will feel off, and I'll realize I have like 7 blankets just strewn about the couch. And to me, they just seem like part of the couch because I use them so much. But I've tried to get into the habit lately of having just 1 blanket neatly folded out on the couch and the rest of them stored away to just bring out whenever we actually need them. If you have any other ideas you want to share, please leave them in the comments. These tips are really not meant to be taken as like harsh rules. It's more like if any of these things resonated, maybe try them out. I feel like if you followed every rule that you hear like this on YouTube, your space would be really boring. But if you just go with kind of what feels right in your gut and really like look at your space with a problem solving mind, then some of these might be helpful. So hopefully at least one of them was helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.